Hey everyone, welcome to the Nursing Dose with your host, Dr. Laurent. Today we have a very special guest. We have Dr. Tiffany Brown, and we're going to be talking about all things podcasting. And particularly if you are an aspiring nurse entrepreneur or nurse entrepreneur, why you should consider podcasting. So, thank you so much for coming on today's show. I really appreciate it. If you want to say hello and say a little bit about yourself and tell them, your podcast and all that great stuff.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Laurent. Yes, I'm Dr. Tiffany C. Brown. I am overall just a doctoral level nurse practitioner. I've been a nurse practitioner, or nurse since 2001. So I'm kind of telling my age a little bit, but that's okay because we know brown skin don't crack. But yeah, I practice primarily in oncology, and I've been doing that for over 23 years. So why did I get into podcasting? Well, obviously there's a little story there. And my podcast is called You Belong in Here, a Black Healthcare Perspectives podcast. And so I started it mostly because I realized I was walking around with a lot of silent frustration with regards to some of the racial interactions or racial disparities, and not only in the African American community, but some of the challenges that Black nurses, Black doctors, Black nurse practitioners, anyone in the healthcare field experiences being at work. So pretty simple. So that's why I decided to talk about it. I believe everybody has a story, and I think story sharing can be a form of healing to a certain aspect. Yeah. And, I wanted to create a safe space for not only my viewers, but my, guests to share their story, to share their journey, and almost in a sense why they stayed, because we're resilient people. So I think that it's important to share, what challenges you have, but then also things that help you overcome them so that you can help other people and empower others as well. So that is, in a sense, the format of my podcast and why I decided to start it and my little brief history.
Awesome. So tell people, I guess, we'll share again at the end, but quickly, where, can they find your podcast if they wanted to quickly subscribe now?
Oh, absolutely. So my podcast is on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, as well as YouTube. I'm working on editing. So far, it's been I've published 7 episodes. I just started it this year in January, and it's every other week. So I just published the 7th episode last Wednesday. I do it every other Wednesday. And so, yeah, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube.
Awesome. Yes, I love it. And I started my podcast a couple years ago, and same thing, in the beginning, I was really just going live, like on this platform, LinkedIn, and streaming live. And then later on, I was like, why don't I just take the audio, turn it into a podcast, and then it's on YouTube as well. So there are so many different reasons why podcasting is so amazing, right? It's so amazing to do. We'll get into those reasons why. If you are a nurse or aspiring nurse entrepreneur or a nurse entrepreneur, why you should get into podcasting, the benefits and things like that. Shout out to Jealous. Yeah. John. Yes. Hey, Dr. Lauren, Dr. Brown. I love this connection with you too. Yes, all the way from California. So let us know where you're watching from, what city, what country, any comments or questions you may have. And maybe if you're interested in podcasting, put any questions you may have about podcasting down. So one question I have for you, Dr. Tiffany Brown, is, when you thought about starting, did you think like, oh man, like, how am I going to do this? Like, what are the technical aspects I need to learn about? Anything like that? Did you have any hesitations?
Absolutely. I mean, hesitation, questions, all of it is normal. Mostly I was like, who's going to listen to this? Who is this for? Like, who the heck is going to listen to this? Who wants to see me? Nobody knows me, that kind of thing. But when you think about, like, I'm a podcaster, like I listen to podcasts myself. And so when you look at the numbers, because I'm a little bit of a nerd, right? So when I started thinking about like, why should I start a podcast? I looked, I just looked at some statistics, right? Like,
Mhm.
and I understand that engagement over 30% of Americans listen to a podcast, an average of 8 episodes per week, right? Including myself. And most people listen to podcasts either while they're doing some housework around the house or like myself on my commute to work. So,
Mhm.
put something on, something inspiring, or something that you could just to get there with. And so I looked at that audience. And so I said, okay, this is something I probably can do. Then also, there is like it's booming financially, right? It's a booming industry.
Yeah.
From what I can have looked up, it's about, I would say, estimating over $17 billion they projected to be financially projected by the year 2030. Podcast listeners also growing in diversity.
Mhm.
Mostly women, like listen to podcasts, or more than men. And most people want to learn something new. So some people like the drama, right? And then some people like things that are educational, right? And
Mhm.
so I'm like, how can I combine the two? And again, I mentioned everyone has a story, right? And
Mhm.
so when I said, who wants to hear about this? Who wants to hear about my story? So you'd be surprised how many people want to hear about your story. And so that was, in a sense, why I decided, you know what, just go ahead and jump into it. Sometimes
Yeah.
you need to just take action on those things. And, uncertainty is normal, but, sometimes just sticking with it and see what the outcome's going to be. So that's my thing.
Yes, that is awesome. And you've touched on a bunch of different points, right? So we're gonna go through and what's up, Josie from New York? She was at the conference as well. This is the Fireworks conference, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then we have Brianna Patterson from Rochester.
Yeah.
Yay!
Hey, Brie.
So a couple of things you mentioned, right? So number one, it could be profitable, right? So maybe in the beginning, if you're starting, you may not know all the different the different ways, excuse me, that you can profit from having a podcast. But one easy way is like having brand deals, right? A lot of people get brand deals. They may put in some commercials in there where people will pay you. So that's one big way. Another big reason is, like you said, sharing your story so that people know about you. So that visibility piece, especially for nurse entrepreneurs, right? Whatever it is that you're doing, if people know about you, and podcasting is amazing, especially if you're doing video podcasting, right? Because like people feel like they get to know you a little bit more and know your personality. So since you've started your podcast, do you feel that you've had, more networking connections, right? More visibility? Like talk to me a little bit about that.
To a certain aspect. I mean, I didn't necessarily even do it for the visibility, but that's just something that comes along with it, I would
Mhm.
say. And I would say to other nurses, stand in your power, because we are experts, in things as well. And so I think having a healthcare or a Black healthcare perspectives podcast, and focus it on what things I'm an expert in. And so that helps me to also serve the community,
Mhm.
the community of people. Like we go to all these nursing conferences, these educational conferences. And so it gives me an opportunity to share what is learned. Like I went to my diversity in nursing equity conference in DC recently, and that was a huge networking event. But I also learned so much and connected with so many different people. And especially the time as it is right now,
Yeah.
if you know what I'm saying regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's no time to speak out about these things and how it affects, especially Black people and other brown skinned people as right now, and women, of course, then right now. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your question, but maybe I need to repeat it.
No, you answered it. I mean, I think part of it, because a lot of people out here, whether you want to start a business or you have a business, or maybe you're just like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, but I don't really know how to go about it, right? So as you can see, you can do it easily. There's many platforms that you can use. And the biggest thing you mentioned earlier is to find a specific kind of topic that you want to talk about. It doesn't have to be one thing, but you need some clarity surrounding your podcast first. So for me, the Nursing Dose with Farah, I not only just interview nurses, but I interview people in different industries, where we talk about, personal branding, talk about different issues in nursing, business, but I try to keep it like uplifting and light. But that's kind of like part of the brand and, what I do. But you may be interested in something completely different and start a podcast. So like for you, you're doing, something specific. So if you're thinking about starting a podcast, definitely get your messaging, the topics, and the reason behind the impact, like what it is you want to do with your podcast. That's number one. Absolutely. I think clarity is huge with podcasting, right? And then what platform do you use just to share with everyone?
Yeah, I use, you mean for the taping?
Yes.
I use Riverside, which, you can go live on Riverside. You could do a lot of editing on Riverside. I also use Libsyn to kind of track the trends. And then, of course, LinkedIn. When you use LinkedIn to promote your podcast, you can see who's watching it, what part of the country they're watching it from or listening to it from, or the people that touch your views, and et cetera, et cetera. But, again, just do it. If that's something that you're interested in, I agree with you, Dr. Laurent. You have to have a focus. And how I started, I said, all right, can I create based off of the title of what I'm calling my podcast? You belong in here. What does that mean? I want to make everyone be known that, hey, if you're a person of brown skin or if you're African American, you belong in your workplace, you belong in your place of education. Okay, great. Can I create at least 10 topics from the title? Like, can I? So, I wrote down 10 topics. And then from that, next thing you know, it just kind of flows. So I would say specifically regarding how many, like 10. And then I decided, all right, how often do I want to tape? Or how often, what is my personal bandwidth? And I think you have to think, because obviously I work a full-time job. I'm a nurse practitioner, I see patients, I work 4 days a week, spend time charting, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Have a full life. Some people may have children, some people may be in school, getting that upper education. So you have to look at your personal bandwidth and what you really can commit yourself to, right? Yeah. So I said, okay, I can logically do every other week for now, So I said, I could commit to 24 episodes. That's 24 episodes. I've already almost taped though already because they're pre-taped, but I've already almost made that number. So then you just kind of see, okay, this is doable. So I've been able to ascertain, all right, this is something that I can do. It is doable. And really, it wasn't that expensive to start, which I'm sure we might get to.
Yeah. And those are awesome, great points, because you mentioned a couple things there. So obviously there's different platforms for podcasting, and I'm not getting paid for anything, but maybe I'll be a brand ambassador for one of them. But I use Restream, which is just a platform that I used to go on LinkedIn, and it's a paid version. Many of these platforms have free versions that you can use, or you have a paid version. So like Dr. Brown said, she does some editing on Riverside and things like that. But let's say you don't want to do it yourself. You can easily outsource that editing. And as for me, I don't like editing. So I really believe in, like, this is just me, and every podcast is different. I really believe in just raw, uncut, just like I do the podcast. And then all I do is take the audio, put it on Spotify, and then I stream to YouTube. So for me, because I have such a busy life, like you mentioned, 2 kids, all, still working part-time, all that stuff, it's still doable. It's just in what manner do you want to do it? For me, I think audio is great, but the video aspect is you can really see how you interact with your guests. And I feel like it really helps with the visibility piece. Now, let's get into another topic, which is, what if someone's watching, they're like, you know what? I don't like my voice. I don't like the way I look, all that type of stuff. What would you say to them if they really were serious about starting?
Accept yourself. I mean, just honestly, because I've been told a lot of things about how I look, about my voice, all these things. I've been told, oh, you have a great voice, podcaster, or someone else, your voice is too high, or you sound like this type of person, or, your hair, I mean, people can just think and say everything, but at the same time, I have to pull into that self-confidence and just honestly, this is the voice that I have. This is the face that I have. This is the hair that I'm wearing today, because I might change it next week. I mean, and that's just who I am. So part of it is scary, honestly. It can be because I just started producing my videos because I'm very particular. And so I actually hired someone to help with the videos. And that, Fiverr, if anyone has any idea, I'll just be specific. I use Fiverr, 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 or something like that. And they can help with editing your videos. So I do exactly what Dr. Laurent does as far as the audio, push, piece of cake, but I do like editing my audio because sometimes I realize myself and guests say a lot of ums or those, like I say, like, or, I may say that a lot, the full words. And so with the editing, you could just, oh, dang, you could just get rid of them.
Right. Yeah. And there's so much tech tools that people can use, so it's just amazing that, the things that you can actually use to make it easy for you. Right. And back to the nurses who are interested in business or maybe building their personal brand, right? Wait, let me just back up. So people that are saying, well, I don't know about my voice, I don't know about how I look, take yourself out of it. And I know it's hard to do for some people, but think about the message, right? Absolutely. And think about the purpose and the impact that you're making. So you may not know who's listening and you don't know what impact you're making. And it could be, maybe you have 10 listeners to begin with. It doesn't matter, right? But if you touch someone at the time with your message or whatever, it's greater than yourself. It's an actual impact that you're creating. So you think from a place of service and like, I'm helping people or at least sharing my story that somebody might, gain some benefit from. So I think if you think about it in that way, it's easier. And then you think about it in terms of always bring it back to gratitude. Like, hey, I can do this. I get to do this, right? So not a lot of people have the means to start a podcast, but if you can, like, go ahead, right? So yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to say. And then I forgot what I was going to say next.
Well, 100%. I'm happy that you brought it back on track, because I 100% agree with that, more so about the broader message and who your audience is. And I would just add this one thing and something that I learned, because I've only been doing this for a few months, like 4 months, right? Is, learning that my podcast, my calling, my anointing, my voice may not be for everyone. My look may not be for everyone. But my podcast, my calling, my anointing, my voice is going to be who it's for. It has an audience. And so, yeah, like you mentioned, the audience may be 10 people. And I would say this too, just backtracking slightly, because in the beginning you have to be patient, and patience, of course, is a virtue. But yeah, it's going to be starting small starts, small audience, but keep going. It has an audience, people will listen, people will accept it, people will like you, or they won't. If it's not for them, it's not for them. And that's okay.
Yeah. And that's okay. And I just think it's so fun to just create. It's a very creative process, right? Where you can do so many things. And then obviously you meet people, you meet amazing people like how we're meeting now. And you get to learn yourself as a podcaster when you're interviewing people, and then obviously making those connections. And then, it can lead to other opportunities. That's another big thing. When people watch you or listen to you, it can lead to potential other opportunities. It can lead to business, right?
Mhm.
It can attract customers, clients, whatever it is. Or you can even get like speaking opportunities. So let's see. Let's take some comments here.
Oh, sure.
We have Katrina Luis who says, awesome sharing. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And then the other thing is, it's like you're also building somewhat of a legacy, right? It might sound a little bit like extra, but let's say you do have kids or family members or just people in general, this will live on eventually, right? Your actual content. And you can actually take the content and chop it up into small pieces and create short form videos. Especially LinkedIn is really pushing short form videos. Do you create content outside of your podcasting?
That's a great question. I haven't. I'm actually taking a trip this upcoming weekend. I'm going to Ghana, so I'm planning to, create some content surrounding my trip.
Yes.
In
I'd
Ghana,
love to
because I
see.
went back before. I went 20 years ago. I've been a couple of times. I went 20 years ago on a healthcare mission with a past church I went to.
Mhm.
And this time I'm going for pleasure, mostly because I had a little PTSD from hoping. I was working, and mission work is work. And
Yes.
so I wanted to I was going to create some content. So I'm happy you brought that up. And even include this as like a work trip too. So y'all can write that up. But but yeah, so I'm happy you mentioned that, like creating content. And I will say this, Dr. Lauren, it's been challenging to create content outside of um specifically just for the podcast tapings. And I want some of your, if you can give some tips about that, because finding the time, to create meaningful videos and not just say something about anything,
Right.
but to have meaning is important. So and then one thing I'm learning even with myself in this is to not compare yourself to other people.
Yeah.
And know that your time is going to come, that whatever I would say God has for you is for you, and not to compete, compare, or complain. Because when you compare yourself to other people, then you feel less about yourself. And so, I can understand saying, oh, well, they're doing that part. Great. Let me ask them how they do this and find the time to do that versus comparing. So I just want to throw that in there as well.
Well, amazing things. Number one, that you're going to Ghana. That's amazing. The food is so good. I love West African food. Actually, I was born in West Africa. So that's amazing. You should definitely do some clips and like record yourself, right? Because the other thing about, like, I love talking about personal branding, um, is that people want to see a little bit more sometimes about you and like outside of work or outside podcasting. And they love behind the scenes footage. So even if you just do quick 30-second or like a minute video, and then you can even have that for future, like just for memories, right? But I say around social media content creation, what is the purpose, right? What is the purpose of you creating content? Just not you in general, but anyone that wants to create content. And is it, entered for entertainment? Is it fun, educational? And you can have different categories where you're just letting people know about you, what you like, your behind the scenes footage, or even for your podcast. You could just do a setup one day where you're like, this is how I set up my podcast. Do like a 90-second video. So you give some people some behind the scenes of like how you do your podcasting, which could be different for everybody, right? Some people actually have studios for themselves or where they come in with their guests. But I say, yeah, definitely do it, especially if you're going to a beautiful place like Ghana. But don't overthink it. And then eventually, let's say you have a business, like if you're a nurse consultant or a coach, uh, or you want to build your personal brand, you're not sure what you want to do, your audience will start kind of telling you what it is that they like so that you could kind of guide your content towards that. Like, so let's say you on your podcast talk about, I don't know, high blood pressure and something. And they're like, I really love that episode. Can I get more of that? So you'll know what type of content to create. I mean, it was just a quick example, but yeah. So as we wrap up, I just want to play a quick game with you.
Sure.
Um, you know, and another thing too for podcasting, if you're interested, some people like to be very structured and plan their podcast, and that's great and it helps them. Some of them script it. I don't do any of that. I'm just like go with the flow, and then you could do that too. So it takes a lot of pressure off. So yeah, let's do a couple fun questions. So what would you say your number one song is right now that's on repeat or that you love? Or favorite artist?
Um, well, those are like 3 different questions right now. I mean, like, so my favorite artist right now, I love Robert Glasper. He's a jazz pianist. So he's like one of my favorite artists. So I listen to a lot of jazz, smooth jazz, especially when I, if I'm creating content, I need background music. So that if otherwise, if I'm listening to like, Cardi B or some Drake or something, I want to dance. But if I'm like putting on some jazz, I have Robert Glasper in the background, Canvas, one of his, then I'm just like vibing, like focusing. So I mean, it depends, I know I'm type A personality. So it's like it depends for each season. If I'm going to hang out with my friends or something like that, I might throw in some, old school Kendrick Lamar or some 90s hip hop, Nas, Jay-Z or Tupac or Biggie Smalls. I mean, so it just depends, right? Like, okay.
So that's interesting that you love jazz. So when I lived in Canada and I worked in Detroit for a little bit, there is this really cool venue in downtown Detroit called Shane Park, and they would always have like different jazz festivals and things like that. So I got to go. And actually, Brian McKnight was part of one of the little jazz festivals. See, I didn't know that about you, that you like.
Yeah,
jazz.
I love jazz. I live in the Bay Area, so they have a lot of jazz fests and Black and Food and Wine festivals and anything with music. I'm like, I love music.
See, we're vibing. I love music too. Love concerts, especially like outside type concerts. Cool. Okay, cool. And let's say, what is one of your top places that you'd love to travel that you haven't been to yet?
Sure. One of the top places like that's on my list right now. I would say Greece. I still have not been there. So that's on my list. Turkey. I want to go to Istanbul because I'm weird. I want to.
That's not weird.
Hot air balloons. I've seen it all over IG. I always want to, be out on the hot air balloon when they have the hot air balloon festival. So, Greece, Turkey.
Girl, you're giving me more than one. It's okay.
Oh, sorry.
One more. Give me one more if you want.
I said Dubai.
Dubai. Okay, yeah, I've never been.
Yeah, I would love to check that out.
You should probably check out New Mexico. Has like a huge
hot air. New Mexico, but I can go back. I haven't gone to. I've been to New Mexico. I haven't been to their hot air balloon.
The hot air balloon thing. Yeah, I used to work with this girl who was from Albuquerque in the ER. She used to tell me about it. Okay, so yeah, as we wrap up, then what would you say your biggest podcasting tip would be to any nurse out there who wants to start a podcast or a business owner? What's your top tips for them?
Can I give you 3? Because
give me 3. Yeah,
why do I struggle with 1? Because I feel like it's.
I said tip. Go ahead. 3.
All right. So 3 tips that I would say: focus. Number 1, you need focus. Okay. Number 2, you need discipline. Right.
Okay.
To do anything and to plan anything, and then also, lastly, action. You have to take action. Like faith without works is dead. Well, I'm quoting scripture now, but like you can have, the brain power, want to do it, feel like God put it in your spirit to do it. But you got to take action on it. Right. And then, so all those things: focus, discipline, action.
Awesome. And then I'm going to just ask how, because I'm going to talk about my conference. So we met in person at the Nurses Making Money Moves conference, where I hosted in Tampa for the very first time. And I hope you're going to be there again 2026. I already got the venue. I haven't announced it yet.
Okay.
But how was that experience, meeting everybody? How did you enjoy it for those who missed out?
Yeah, it was such a full experience. It was impactful. I learned a lot. I took back a lot of things that I'm taking action on. And also, it was just a wonderful networking event, and to meet other people who are going where you're going and doing what you're doing. So that's one thing I would say.
Mhm.
Obviously, to be successful in any age, you have to age or gauge or spectrum. You have to surround yourself with people who are doing what you're doing, going where you're going. And mostly because I'm not an expert in this, right? I'm learning this branding, et cetera, podcasting. So I want to learn from people who are already doing it. So hence you, Dr. Laurent.
Awesome. And what would you say to the people who missed it? Would you recommend them coming for next year?
Absolutely. I think it's
yes.
You have to go if you have not been before.
Yes.
And you have to go if you're a nurse entrepreneur, interested in it. You need to go to this conference and be enlightened.
Yes. And then tell them, more importantly, how they can connect with you if they'd like to be on your podcast or subscribe to your podcast. Where do they go to connect with you?
Absolutely. So I'm on LinkedIn, of course. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can connect with me on IG, ribtip_T. You can send me an email, youbelonginherepod.com. For my podcast, is on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You Belong in Here, a Black Healthcare Perspectives podcast.
Awesome. And I'll share those links later so you guys can have it. You can connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her and subscribe to her podcast, and also subscribe to The Nursing Dose if you haven't yet. Same thing, YouTube, Spotify. And any last words for the people out there?
Last words, nurses, you have an opportunity to share your knowledge, your expertise, and it's all a form of information and service. So become a nurse entrepreneur, become a podcaster if you're interested. Just do it.
Yes, just do it. Again, thank you so much. Always a pleasure speaking with you. And I can't wait to be on your podcast.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
All right, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, have a wonderful day. Take care.